Good morning, everyone. It's the time of the week for another Instagram Live. Earlier this morning, doing it in the morning because of various other engagements happening this afternoon. And so we will do the usual merry dance and wait to see what happens. So here we go.
Good morning.
There we are, sir. How are you?
Yeah, good. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. We're having the battle of the lockdown here, it looks like.
Yes, I know.
Mine is fighting as well.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Steph, thanks so much for joining me on Instagram Live. Great to have you on. For those who haven't kind of come across you before, come across study options, do you want to give the sort of the brief elevator pitch intro?
Yeah, so look, we are based down in Bristol, lovely Bristol, and for 15 years we've been helping students students in the UK apply to universities in Australia and New Zealand. So I studied in Australia myself many years ago. Came back to the UK and wanted to help others do the same thing. I just see we've had leaving cert guidance. We do also help students in Ireland as well. So we're okay with the Irish and anyone that is living in Ireland. So we're a completely free service. We're funded by the universities in Australia and New Zealand. So we help with, I guess, initially kind of that conversation, finding a course, finding the right course at the right university, advising on various scholarships that are available, and there are quite a few available at the moment. And then the whole application process through to visas, accommodation, bank accounts, and anything else students might need.
Got it. Great. And you guys do a great job. And, a lot of schools will know you guys from the guide that your colleague Sarah spends sort of seemingly half a year getting ready
Yes,
and posting out. It's a great resource. For those guys who might be kind of sort of aware of the idea of what you just said, an agent who takes commission, probably worth saying you guys are working with basically every Australian, and I think, is it all New Zealand
Not
universities?
yes, all universities in New Zealand. Not all. I think we're probably 80% of Australian universities. Certainly not all of them, but the majority of them, and certainly all of what is called the Group of Eight. So like the Russell Group in the UK, so we work with all of those.
Yeah. So in effect, you are able to advise on the whole market as long as it's Australia and New Zealand without any kind
Yeah,
of
that's it.
commercial pressures for
And
you.
certainly, in the odd moment when we have an inquiry or a student who's wanting to go to university outside of the ones we work with, I am able to signpost them to the right person in Australia that can help them with an application.
Got it. Great. So, big picture then, what is the attraction? Why are students from, well, let's say the British Isles, because I know as well as Ireland, you guys do a lot of stuff on the Channel Islands as well. Why
Yeah.
are they attracted to Australia and New Zealand for uni?
I mean, it's various things. I mean, it's why did I go myself, I guess. So my journey was more to do something a little bit different. So I ended up studying at Newcastle University in just north of Sydney. For a number of our students, so looking at something like a Bachelor of Arts, which would be one of our most popular programs, it's the ability to essentially make that degree your own. For example, University of Melbourne insists that within your Bachelor of Arts, 25% of your degree comes from outside of your faculty. So it's a great opportunity for someone to, study English literature, but also to bring in marketing or to bring in photography or something a little bit different to make that degree that is very unique to you. I guess, obviously, David, you advise a lot on the US universities. So probably not as broad as the
Yeah.
US system, but not as narrow as the UK one. So that's a big attraction for students. And then you're kind of looking at specific subjects. So, somewhere like James Cook, for example, on the Great Barrier Reef, arguably, one of the best places to study marine biology.
Yeah.
So it's those, those a lot of the science programs that are offered in Australia and New Zealand, have such an incredible reputation. But equally, we send students for such a range of different programs, and that is from Bachelor of Arts through to to harder to get into medicine programs. We're getting a whole heap of medicine applications coming through at the moment. So yeah, kind of everything and anything, but also that kind of that opportunity to study in a different country. And you know, my expertise lies with Australia and New Zealand, but you know, I'm such a huge fan, and I know you are, of having some form of experience in another country, and whether that is Australia, New Zealand, or US, or Canada, or Asia, or Europe. I think it's such an important thing to have as part of your education, and it really does shine when it comes to looking for jobs.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree 100%. And actually, the model that you say about how the degree is structured in Australia and New Zealand, yeah, I quite often will be speaking about Canada, which is obviously quite a similar model. You know, universities founded in the same kind of time and the same kind of educational philosophy. And that idea of, yes, I want breadth, but I'm a mathematician. I don't want to be writing papers on Shakespeare, or I'm an English student. I don't want to be
Exactly.
taking calculus. It fits that happy medium quite nicely. Can I ask about the sports side of it? Because that sometimes is a block. You know, obviously I tend not to advise the students I'm working with here in the UK and Australia and New Zealand, because I say, well, you guys know it better than me, and you're free. So why would you use me? And a lot of the students who are attracted to that, opposed to, say, the European or the North American model, is because the sporting scene in Australia and New Zealand tends to fit the sports that we have here. Do you get a lot of interest in that kind of side of things?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and if you look at, you know, so from a sports science point of view, so we get a lot of, you know, sports science students looking to go. And actually, if you look at two universities in particular in Australia, Deakin and Sydney, they, you know, rankings wise, they're up, you know, in a similar space as Loughborough, as being, you know, the best places in the world to study to study sports science. When it comes to sport, you know, we know that the Aussies and the Kiwis are sport crazy. But yeah, different sports fit, you know. So if you're a rugby union player, you can go anywhere in New Zealand. But when it comes to Australia, you have to be quite specific as to
Yeah.
which city you are in, because it becomes it's Aussie rules, or it's rugby league dominated in certain areas. But we have, you know, we've sent some fantastic swimmers. I mean, Australia has 8 times as many Olympic-sized pools than the UK.
Wow.
Yeah, which is a fact I try to quote quite often, but I don't get to quote it that often. But you know, the sports facilities are kind of second to none over there. You know, and you know, your experience of the US, you know, would be a similar thing.
Yeah.
It's taken very, very seriously, and you know, there, whatever your sport, it is there. I guess I'll say here that, again, unlike the US, sports scholarships don't really exist, unfortunately. I wish they did, but they don't. Yeah, they don't really exist in Australia or New Zealand, unfortunately, at this stage.
Yeah. But the quality is pretty good, as you say. A lot of kind of things that students can pursue, and yeah, if they want to be able to play good cricket and good rugby, the cricket certainly not going to find in the US. The rugby is growing, but
Yep.
it's still not. And you've got to be quite targeted. Can I ask about New Zealand for a little bit, because it's something that, you know, I've done time to time. Certainly when I was working in Brussels, a lot of New Zealand students going there. It seems to be a kind of sector that I think is slightly less well known than Australia as a destination. Why would students maybe be perhaps thinking of New Zealand universities rather than Australia? Because I know there were some kind of key differences there.
Yeah, so I mean, look, you're very right in that, you know, that I guess that forefront thing, but I think it's more than just education. I think, you know, a lot of students will. A lot of people will think, okay, I'm going to go on my gap year, I'm going to travel around the world, but I'm going to go to Australia, and a lot of people forget about New Zealand, which is a real shame, because they are, you know, they're quite similar in a way, but also extremely different. I mean, New Zealand is, from a university point of view, from looking at an education point of view, there's only 8 universities, so it makes, you know, and there are, you know, if you want to go and do, you know, certain subjects, you know, it's very easy in a way to work out which ones fit with you. So you've got the old prestigious university, you've got University of Auckland, but then you've got, you know, somewhere like Otago, which is down in the South Island, which, you know, our students, our undergrads specifically, absolutely love, because you've got this opportunity, because of where it is. You can be in Queenstown skiing in 2 hours, or you can be surfing, you know, and then you can be surfing in the afternoon. So it's Otago has always been, you know, a very popular destination for our undergraduate students. A similar, very similar degree structure in terms of what I talked about, having that breadth of degree. Probably more affordable in a lot of cases, certainly from tuition fee and certainly cost of living compared to some of the major cities in Australia. But it's, I don't know, I guess a lot of students quite often tend to be Australia or New Zealand. They are very rarely, I'll apply to, Sydney, Melbourne, and then Auckland. It doesn't happen that often. And a lot of, outdoorsy people tend to look at New Zealand maybe more than Australia.
Interesting. Probably a very short answer, but just worth sort of doing the due diligence here. Because you guys are taking the commission for the placing students, and this is where I do tend to help with Australia and New Zealand, is you are limited to non-passport holders, aren't you, for both those options in terms of what you can officially do to help?
We can help to a certain point, and again, I will we'll signpost and put them in touch with the relevant domestic admissions parties. But it's not, so Australia, for example, you would apply through a UCAS equivalent depending on which state you are going to. So if you're going to want to go and study at the University of Sydney or Macquarie University, you would apply through what is called UAC, so University Admission Centre. That is specific to the state of New South Wales plus the ACT. So it's our expertise. It's a very different process. But yeah, our expertise is very different within that domestic space as opposed to international. But look, we will do as much as we can.
Yeah. Well, I know you guys do it, and I would say for the people that are listening, genuinely, probably once every couple of years, I'm going to be working with a student. I'm working with a student now, who's looking at Australia and New Zealand, who is a citizen, and it's great to have the resources you guys have. But yeah, we're doing UAC. He wants ANU. Yeah. I'm saying maybe, we've done the pre-assessment of his A-levels, and his ATAR doesn't look great for the ANU, so we're looking at Otago. So it's important that people understand that difference. I'm conscious we're getting up to sort of, 50 minutes or so. There's two big questions I wanted to ask you. The first one is about the academic calendar, and then kind of linking to that as to why students might right now want to think about Australia and New Zealand is COVID. And so do you want to sort of talk about the academic calendar and how then potentially COVID might move on?
Yeah, so in the main, so Australia and New Zealand run a 2-semester year. So the first main intake which is when most of our undergraduates would tend to start, is usually third week of February. So that, I guess, at this point in time has an advantage in that, obviously the borders are still closed for both countries. I think New Zealand has had 24 deaths in total. Australia has had 102. And there are no current cases in New Zealand at the moment. So we're certainly seeing, quite a demand for students who would have considered potentially university here in September, but with the chances that may be online, they're then looking to hopefully being on campus by February next year. And it's, there's been a lot of discussion about both countries opening their borders for international students before other visa categories. The reality is it's a huge industry for both countries. It is hoped, and it's looking like towards the end of this year. Before that. So probably in the next 3 months, the borders will open for students who unfortunately have been locked out. So we've got a couple who have actually returned to the UK. So students who've been locked out of those countries, and then they should hopefully be able to get back into the country, followed by then what is hopefully new student visa holders towards the end of the year. So you've got the intake in February, so that's the main intake. You also have an intake in July, so mid-year intake for the majority of programs, but not all. Other universities do work on a trimester program. So there are, for example, University of New South Wales or Bond will have, or Griffith as well, will have intakes in October, November. So there is potentially the opportunity there. And so we have some students who are willing to start online and who are starting online in July, August, with the view to then getting out to Australia to complete their degree the last 2.5 years when the borders allow.
Got it. And I think you'd probably want to say that the support and the money that both governments have put into supporting current international students who've been in difficult situations or themselves just got stuck in the country has been probably a model for the rest of the world, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that they can certainly be praised for how quick they've reacted to everything and how quick both the federal government but also state governments in Australia have. Somewhere like South Australia has pledged millions and millions of dollars for the existing international students to support them, whether it be towards accommodation. A lot of these students would have had part-time jobs who are now left in a situation where they haven't been able to work. I know students are now kind of getting back to work, and campuses, some have already reopened for in-person learning, and I believe the majority of them will be back, not at previous full capacity, but for a lot of students, and certainly the lab-based or performing arts, they will be back teaching on campus come July, August.
Fantastic. Great. Another thing that I think probably people might not know about studying Australia and New Zealand is obviously we think of them as kind of Anglo-centric things. You've grown up watching Neighbours and seeing Shane Warne and all this kind of stuff. But actually, I know, and from a lot of friends who were college campuses in Asia, that the geographic location of Australia and New Zealand universities has got them very plugged into these, hugely impressive economies, not just China, but Hong Kong, Singapore, Vietnam, Thailand. And so the diversity of an international student experience studying at, a university in that part of the world, yes, you're going to get an amazing education, you get a slightly different structure, you get the lifestyle things. But I guess the network that a British student going to study at somewhere like University of Sydney is going to make with similarly, impressive young people who have come out of all that Pacific Rim area, that's got to be an amazing opportunity.
Yeah, completely. And even from my own experience, 20 odd years ago, the network that I have from that is very global. And at any one university, you might have 120 different nationalities. I mean, the last time we ran our own stats on students we'd sent who had previous education in the UK, I think we were up to 85 countries that we'd helped in 85 nationalities that we'd helped in the last 15 years. So it's amazing that you've by studying at any of the universities in Australia and New Zealand, and that will be students from Asia, North America, who tend to do a short-term study abroad semester. Plenty from Europe, and specifically again Scandinavian students looking to do a study abroad semester, but students from all over the world, which is great, and I think it's such an important, that's a different education, on top of your university study.
Great. Where you and I tend to interact and how we got to know each other is obviously with the undergraduate stuff. You guys are helping with masters and doctoral applications as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, so we've we do anything from a degree, well, any kind of university program. Increasing number of research students actually are coming through, and a lot of those are looking for and tend to be in the main fairly successful for scholarships and also living stipends, which is fantastic. Some of the projects that are coming through as well are pretty incredible. I'm working with someone at the moment who's looking at pollution and plastics within water in the sea and in rivers. I've worked with a student who's actually just started at RMIT, I believe, who is looking at food waste, all very, very current subjects at the moment. I mean, the food waste in Australia is a $19 billion problem, and I'm sure is a much bigger problem here. So yeah, a lot of research students, a lot of master students, and the great thing about both Australia and New Zealand, if you study for a 2-year masters in Australia, you can apply for up to 4 years of a post-study work visa. If you do a 1-year postgraduate qualification in New Zealand, you can apply for up to 3 years. So it's a great opportunity to kind of, complete your study and then, potentially work, get that kind of first all important job in the country where you've studied, with the view to then either returning home or potentially staying in Australia or New Zealand.
Awesome. And something I know I talk a lot about with students and families, that people tend not to think about the idea of when does that visa stop and when you're going to be kicked out. And certainly I deal with a lot of families who think in the US that it's going to be a route to working there. And in normal times, it's not. With the current politics, it's potentially even harder. So looking at places like Australia and New Zealand, a very good idea. Steph, if people want to get a hold of you guys, they want to find out more, if you've got, counsellors who've been on this, are going to watch it back later on Instagram TV or on Facebook, what's the best way of getting a hold of you? And if they don't get a copy of the guide sent to them, how can they get on your radar?
Okay, so I mean, probably the easiest way is just via the website initially, so studyoptions.com. Look, I'm available most hours of the day and most days of the week at the moment. So I spend a lot of my evenings at the moment having Zoom conversations with various students. So look, we are here, we are kind of available, as are our universities. We often run events with them, or they're willing to have a conversation with various students or indeed counsellors. In terms of the guides, so that it's an electronic copy at the moment. I've got a few boxes left in the office whenever I get back to the office. But yeah, the guide, I can email it out to anyone, or it's available to download on the homepage.
Great, and I'll plug the fact that, obviously I don't live down the road from you guys anymore, but you have a lovely office in probably the nicest part of Bristol with the nicest restaurants, and you're always very happy to welcome counsellors and take them for a coffee and chat about this stuff. So great. Steph, so nice to chat with you. The work that you guys do, I know, is phenomenal. So many happy students. It's my great pleasure to be able to and anyone that says, I want to go to Australia and New Zealand and I'm not a passport holder, to pass them on to you guys, because I know you do an amazing job. So thank you for giving up your time. Thank you for being on Instagram Live. And you and I will continue a conversation about a different topic in about 10 minutes' time.
Yes, fantastic. I'll speak to you soon.
Right. Cheers, Steph. Take care.
Bye.